Okay. Oh, you're sure? Okay.
Last week, in the Atlanta metro area, the DEA seized the more than 1,000 pounds of methamphetamine that you see here, as well as a .45 caliber semi-automatic pistol and thousands of dollars in cash. Those seizures followed two separate, successful, undercover operations led by federal crime fighters with assistance from state and local law enforcement partners. The first operation led to the arrest of 3 illegal aliens from Mexico: Wilber Castellanos Villazana, Jorge Lorenzo Manzanares, Jamilet Calixto Sotelo, and each of those defendants has been charged by criminal complaint with possession of methamphetamine with intent to distribute, a federal offense that carries at least 10 years of imprisonment and the possibility of life in federal prison without the possibility of parole. The second operation led to the arrest of a twice-deported illegal alien, Esteban Jacobo Suarez, and Damian Gomez Guijaro, also of Mexico. Like the other defendants, those 2 men are charged with possession of methamphetamine with intent to distribute and also face 10 years to life in prison. All of the defendants are being held in federal custody right now. Both operations involved undercover purchases of large quantities of methamphetamine, leading agents to identify 2 residences in DeKalb County where the defendants allegedly hid their drug stashes in local neighborhoods. Most of what you see was seized from an apartment less than 2 miles from here, right off of the I-85 access road. Of the remainder, nearly 300 pounds came from inside of a house just a few feet from the Stone Mountain Walmart. Agents also seized a loaded .45 caliber semi-automatic pistol with the Mexican seal on the grips from inside of the Stone Mountain residence. As Special Agent in Charge Murphy will explain, the methamphetamine seized last week is believed to have belonged to the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, known as CJNG. CJNG is an ultra-violent, murderous, Mexico-based drug cartel. Earlier this year, the State Department designated CJNG as a foreign terrorist organization. Make no mistake, CJNG and other drug cartels are active here in North Georgia. The cartels use Atlanta as a distribution hub for their deadly product. They obtain belt-fed firearms and other weapons of war here before taking them to Mexico to use against their rivals, law enforcement, government officials, and innocent civilians, and they launder their dirty money here as well. Thankfully, the men and women of my office, of the DEA, and of the other agencies that are represented here today are fighting back. Under the leadership of Attorney General Pam Bondi, the Department of Justice has fully embraced Operation Take Back America, which aims to eliminate the cartels, fight violent crime, and faithfully enforce federal immigration law. These cases demonstrate our commitment to Operation Take Back America. They also showcase the value of collaboration between the DEA and the prosecutors in my office to protect the community from dangerous drugs and to hold poison peddlers accountable. In closing, I want to thank AUSA Herskowitz and the men and women of the DEA, particularly HIDTA Task Force Groups 2 and 4, for their hard work. Thanks to them, 1/2 ton of methamphetamine has been taken off the street, and 5 alleged drug traffickers, 4 of them illegal aliens who have no right to be in our country, are in federal custody awaiting justice. And justice will be served. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to add a couple things that what was already said. First off, during the month of September, DEA has been focusing its enforcement efforts, its intelligence gathering, all on the Cartel Jalisco New Generation across the country. It's not just here locally. It's been a concerted effort across the country. That'll be all culminating this week, and again, this is a byproduct of our efforts and what we were able to do in an attempt to show the Cartel Jalisco New Generation that they cannot operate with impunity here in the United States. It will not be tolerated. So a couple other things I want to add. In the residence on the apartment on 2515 Northeast Expressway, there were also 2 young children under the age of 10 living in there, also not in the country. Again, that shows you their willingness to live amongst our communities, to try to blend in. And in fact, they had nearly 700 pounds of methamphetamine inside the house, or inside an apartment with those kids. And then also there were 2 young children in the house in Stone Mountain as well, living there. Again, as stated, with over 300 pounds of methamphetamine inside that house as well. There was also an individual who is wanted federally, had outstanding warrants. Tijojo Rodriguez, he was arrested. He was wanted for federal drug charges, and that turned over to U.S. Marshals, and that will be dealt with as well. The questions will come, were the drugs all destined for here? No. As stated earlier, the Atlanta area is a hub for the cartels. All of the Mexican cartels operate here in Atlanta for the same reasons businesses do. Great transportation routes. There's money here, and there's a population they can blend in and be seen and be able to live within. So not all of it was destined here, but unfortunately, a large amount of it would stayed in the metro Atlanta area and would have been consumed by hardcore meth users. So with that, I'll open it up for some questions.
Did you say the address of the Northeast Expressway again at 2514?
2515 Northeast Expressway, apartment N5, and then the residence is 712 Harrison Crossing Trail in Stone Mountain. We can get those to you. Crystal can get those to you.
What's the street value for all this meth?
Wholesale value, we're talking about what we like to deal with in wholesale. There's so many variables that go into street value, but wholesale, meaning what the cartel leadership is expecting back, was probably about 1.3 million. Conservatively, if it's sold on the street and got broken down, we're talking maybe somewhere in the range, I'd be comfortable with saying 5 million street value. But again, most of this was not going to be sold. Eventually it would get to the street, but it's going to be distributed to mid-level distributors who then would go, so it's kind of hard to predict.
Is this a bigger one here for you guys, or, you guys do a lot of this? So.
We do a lot, and I'd like to say unfortunately, we've had seizures this big, and it's going to continue to be. And as for all the reasons that you heard already, Atlanta is not going to go away from being a hub. With the amount of police that operate in Texas, the border checkpoints, even the farther you get away from the border, interior in the state of Texas, there really is no cost prohibition to go a little bit farther into Atlanta and set up a more comfortable place. There's less law enforcement to deal with. There's less border enforcement. Our partners here, again, I can't do without it. We had the second day, the Stone Mountain search warrant. HSI joined us, as well as DeKalb County and others. Key point, we're all seeing this. We're all fighting it. We're going to be fighting these cartels for a while. So unfortunately, that I say, this hurts. Anytime we can deny them the ability to make revenue and send cash back, it's absolutely going to hurt. We're going to keep fighting, and we're going to keep showing them that, you can come here. It's not going to be easy.
I know you said that you've had seizures like this before, but where does this rank as far as largest seizure in the Atlanta office? Unfortunately,
it's not the largest. We've had bigger ones. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. We've had well over a ton, and this is about a half a ton. So,
can you go into more detail about how you discovered? I know you mentioned undercover purchases, but what else can you tell us about that?
Great police work. There's a lot more to it. It sounds like we just did not knock on the door in an apartment. It took a lot of time and effort, a lot of late nights. But again, as stated before, the men and women, and our partners at the U.S. Attorney's Office, we cannot do this without that. Everybody's got to be. We're working against a cartel that's better funded. They don't have rules. They're not following a constitution. They have no moral compass for the most part. Their sole purpose is to distribute poison in our communities. They don't care what happens. Whether they're not just doing methamphetamine, they're doing fentanyl. They're a poly-drug organization. Whatever drug they can get, they're willing to bring it over here and sell it. And we got to be able to, we were operating in different parameters. Obviously, we follow the law. We got to do it. It takes us a lot longer. But this is the results of good police work and obviously a partnership with the U.S. Attorney's Office. Without that, we wouldn't be successful.
Well, last question for me. Talk about how you don't want to be a neighbor to this because the crime it can bring, I'm guessing, if somebody did get in a fight over drugs.
That's a great question. So, absolutely, they're very protective of their stash houses. Both these were considered stash houses, so you don't go there unless you're. In other words, if you're buying drugs, they don't take you to the stash house. You have to be inner circle members. So, to your point, it's pretty well known. You hear about home invasions all the time. A lot of times when we look into those, after doing a drug deal, they're followed back to their stash house, and then people will rob them. So they're not random, driving by a house, let's go bust into somebody's house. Most of the time, they're drug related, and yes, they're very protective of their stash houses. They don't want to be seen in it, but this is interesting. I'd say if we were standing up here last year, we would have had a methamphetamine conversion lab inside the house, and we haven't seen that lately. So this is coming across the border already processed. So that's another risk that is now not in the community, in the sense very dangerous when there's a processing lab in a community. I think the one in Stone Mountain was a half a mile from a school. I think, as the U.S. Attorney said, right next to Walmart. I mean, we're in a community, so yeah, the danger's there, absolutely. We just talked about $5 million worth of dope sitting on the table. Some bad guys will do a lot of bad things to take control of that. So great question, thank you.
Were you surprised by the quantity, or based on the investigation, was this about what you expected?
Would you feel better if I said I was surprised? Because I'm not. No, and we know who we're going after. We're not wasting our time. We know who we're targeting, and we know what we expect. But yeah, do I want to see 1,000 pounds sitting up here? No. But that's just the reality of what's happening here in Metro Atlanta.
You guys knew what you were getting into when y'all went into this?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, highly trained. Well, the people we have to send in here, we're prepared. We overwhelm them so we don't have to deal with what they deal with in Mexico. So, and I'll say this on the Cartel Jalisco New Generation, they are winning the war in Mexico right now. Sinaloa is extremely fractured. I think if you saw in the news, Ismael Zambada Garcia recently sentenced, and Chapo obviously been in jail for a while. The two heads of Sinaloa, who has long standing been the most powerful cartel in Mexico. CJ&G is making serious ground right now, and I would probably put them, if not the most powerful, neck and neck. They're winning the war. They're fighting each other, and they're all fighting for access to the U.S., meaning that by border crossing point, whoever controls those corridors wins the war, and that's what they're fighting over. Make no mistake about it. That's all they're fighting over, is that corridor from Mexico into the U.S. Who controls that wins the war.
Now, like you talked about, you said all the cartels operate here because we're such a transportation hub. I mean, this is a huge amount, but I mean, is this just a drop in the bucket from what we're facing here in Atlanta?
This isn't going to stop them. Yeah, there's more out there today right now that we don't know about, and yes, there's more going to keep coming. They're going to keep coming. There's no shortage of people willing to take the risk to come over here and make good money, more money. Some of them may be living on dirt floors before they got here, and they're getting paid a lot of money. They'll take the risk to sell drugs here, and if they get caught, as they did, they'll get prosecuted. But there's no shortage of people willing to take that risk in Mexico right now.
Rob, can I address that?
Yeah.
I want to again put into context that although we have here over 1,000 pounds, this was seized over the course of just 3 days. There were 700 some odd pounds that were seized on one day, and then 2 days later, another 300 pounds from just a few miles away. This is all in one county in the course of half of 1 week. And so these drugs are absolutely out there. And it's unfortunate that we've been doing this over and over and over again. But I'm confident that with the efforts of the DEA, with the attention that's now being given by the Department of Justice and a department-wide response that we're now providing, that we are going to make real strides towards eliminating the cartels.
To your point on that, I mean, there's no better. The fracturing of Sinaloa is exactly what we're working towards. As everybody sitting up here, we've been working in Sinaloa. Sinaloa's been around since the beginning of drug time, but we've been fighting them nonstop, and we finally got the two heads. Combined law enforcement. I can't even imagine to think about how many operations have been conducted against Sinaloa. By every federal agency, by every state and local, whether they knew they were working against them or not. And it just took us this long to get those heads. And now we're seeing the fracturing and the loss of power that's going on in Mexico. Who's going to take over and survive right now? I'd bet on CJ&G. So we got to continue to do that. I could go on and on up here about the number of cartels when I hear that, oh, we're not winning. We're winning. We've destroyed several cartels and their willingness to operate in the U.S. We're just going to have to keep fighting it. You know, I liken it to banks. You know, we don't say we're losing the bank robbery war. As long as there's been banks, there's been bank robberies. Do we close all the banks because we don't want bank robberies? I mean, it's just something we're going to have to deal with when we live in an open society.
And
Good question, though. Thank you.
no, thank you. And you mentioned, you know, the children that were in the homes. I know this isn't fentanyl, but how dangerous is it for
Yeah, that drives me.
kids to be around this much methamphetamine? I mean,
If you saw where our guys go in to where when we this, because we don't know what we're going to get when we go in there. And then, yes, for the kids to, I mean, that's a whole nother level of,
Depravity.
thank you. I was going to say something much stronger, so thank you. I mean, it's young kids. Probably everybody in here we have kids. We don't want to see that. Talk about true innocence. They got brought here, you know, they're going to our schools. They're trying to do whatever they can do, and they come home and I mean, who knows the problems they're going to have, because this stuff's been inhaled. Who knows how many just being packaged in there, how much stuff their toys that they put in their mouth have on it. I mean, contamination, and they can't separate it, but it's done on purpose. They send the family on purpose. The cartels aren't stupid. They want them to blend in, so you see them as their neighbors, and you see the kids playing out front. They're not calling any attention to themselves. If you got a blacked out windows and nobody sees them, and there's cars coming and going all day long, everybody knows what that is. Well, they try to blend in. But
I don't want to put words in your mouth. You believe that the presence of families of young children was part to make it look.
it's by design. Yeah. I've seen it my entire career. Again, they do it to blend in.
How do you think they got this stuff over here? It wasn't made here, so I wondered, was it in a semi or?
Trucks, most of it comes over in trucks. I mean, listen, at any one border checkpoint, border crossing area, along the border, 1 million vehicles a day comes across. There's no way we could stop and check every one of those vehicles. So, and you know, this looks like a lot here, but if you think about an 18-wheeler full of, you know, inventory that's got to get to the shelves, I mean, it'd be easy to hide this. So, yeah.
The last time we were here for a press conference like this was only 2 months ago, and that's when there was methamphetamine that was concealed inside of boxes containing cucumbers, and that was a tractor trailer full of those boxes, and each box was full of cucumbers, and inside of the corners were small packages of methamphetamine. So this comes over in the border not necessarily like this, because this will be detectable, but instead through other ways of concealment, and then comes over here for processing and for distribution. And so when we talk about Atlanta being a distribution hub, the cartel is here and it's active, and it's taking the material from Mexico and putting it together to go to other points.
Sir, before you talk about the good job of women and men in the streets, we try to make the best about Spanish translation, but about the neighborhoods, the vulnerable neighborhoods. Maybe you can help me with a call to action for this community about maybe it's better work together, because this is so close from schools or supermarkets, but parents or, people, adults is in the streets. You have a message for these parents, for these families, please?
Absolutely. Although these cartels are trying to embed themselves in our community and hide amongst Georgians, I do believe that neighbors may know or have suspicions about what's going on. And so it's important for those who suspect that there is illegal activity to know to contact the local police, to contact the Drug Enforcement Administration, to contact Homeland Security. Not out of fear, not out of retribution, but for the protection of their own communities. Because attracting this sort of attention, yes, this is a lot of drugs, and drugs are dangerous, but with drugs come guns, and with guns comes violence. Drug-related violence is a plague in our community, and we all need to work together to address that. And the way to do that is by cooperating with law enforcement.
To that point, though, I think it's a great question, because the way you describe these guys is very scary. So if I'm a neighbor, I could see myself being very fearful to speak up about this. What would you say to people who are afraid to speak up about such dangerous organizations?
Having these cartels in our community is the danger. And so the way to address that danger is not by trying to ignore it, not by putting one's head in the sand and hoping that it goes away, because the cartels are not going to go away. If the cartels believe that they are able to operate in a particular area without detection or with impunity, that no one is going to stop them, then that's what they are going to do, because that's the easy choice. So we need to make it harder for them. We're making it harder for them by putting that pressure on them, by seizing their product, by seizing their drug proceeds, by prosecuting them, by ensuring that justice is served. But we also need to make it difficult for them to operate. And folks who have their eyes and ears on the ground in the community can help us in that regard.
And to that point, every agency has a tip line and complete anonymity. Every law enforcement, whether it's state, local, federal, we all have tip lines. So if you see something, say something as simple as that is, all those are readily, easily just call up. You don't have to provide your name. Just say, I've got concerns, I see this. And a lot of that's where something that simple can turn into something this big. So, you know, I totally agree that there's signs that should be seen in neighborhoods that they know something's going on, and fear shouldn't guide you. We don't need you to do anything. We don't need you to be heroes. We just need a phone call to start us in the right direction.
Thank you all.
Can we get the mug shots of the five guys?